Today, adult content is just a click away. But over a century ago, simply filming a woman taking off her heavy Victorian dress was a technological miracle and enough to trigger a massive police scandal. Creating and watching the world's first explicit films wasn't just taboo. It involved high-stakes underground crime, explosive bathtub chemicals, and pop-up theaters hidden in brothels. So in today's video, we are going to step back in time to uncover this wild hidden history and answer three major questions. First, what was people's reaction to the world's first porn film? Second, how was the world's first porn film actually made? And finally, how were people secretly watching these forbidden movies? Let's get into it. To understand how people reacted to the first erotic movies, we have to look at a film produced in 1896 called Le Coucher de la Mariée, which historians widely recognize as the first erotic motion picture. By modern standards, it was incredibly tame. The film featured an actress named Louise Willy playing a blushing bride who asks her husband to step behind a screen while she undresses. She only stripped down to her petticoats, but the public reaction was explosive. When the stage version of this act was first performed, a shocked police official refused to give it a public visa, writing in his report that it was the first time he had ever seen a woman in nightshirt whose only role is to be in nightshirt. However, audiences loved it, and the cinematic adaptation became an overwhelming commercial success, sparking a massive demand for more. As the medium crossed into the United States, the moral panic intensified. In 1896, a short film called Fatima's Coochie Coochie Dance featured a belly dancer gyrating on screen. It was deemed so provocative that censors physically superimposed white grid-like bars over the dancer's pelvis to hide it. Even a simple 47-second loop of a couple kissing on screen, the May Irwin kiss, caused massive public outcry and prompted the Roman Catholic Church to demand strict censorship. Eventually, the softcore era ended, and films were forced deep underground into explicit hardcore territory. But here is the most fascinating part. When audiences finally got to see these hardcore, highly illegal films, their reactions weren't always what you'd expect. So, how did these early pioneers actually shoot these forbidden movies? The production process evolved rapidly from professional studio shoots to highly dangerous clandestine operations. In the beginning, films like Le Coucher de la Mariée were shot on indoor theater sets using professional equipment. But as obscenity laws tightened globally in the early 1900s, explicit filmmakers had to operate anonymously. To avoid police detection and the high costs of indoor lighting, they moved their productions entirely outdoors. For example, the pioneering Argentine film El Satario, shot around 1907, was filmed in a rural landscape, likely along a riverbank. In America, the earliest surviving stag film, a 1915 movie called A Free Ride, was also shot on location along a countryside road. The crew was so terrified of going to prison that they used fake satirical credits, listing the director as A. Wise Guy and the cinematographer as Will B. Hard. The technical hurdles were a nightmare. Cameramen used heavy, hand-cranked cameras. Because they had to physically turn a crank to expose the film, the frame rates were incredibly inconsistent, which is why these old movies always look so jerky and erratic. But the biggest danger was the film itself. These movies were shot on 35mm cellulose nitrate film stock. Nitrate film was not only expensive and bulky, but it was notoriously flammable and could spontaneously combust or release toxic gases. Because producing these films carried severe prison sentences, the creators couldn't just drop their reels off at a local processing lab. Post-production required absolute, intense secrecy. Underground producers often acted as their own amateur chemists, famously washing and developing this highly volatile, explosive film right inside their own bathroom bathtubs. Once the bathtub film was dry, getting it in front of an audience was a massive logistical challenge. Because public exhibition meant risking a police raid and jail time, audiences relied on incredibly organized clandestine networks. In the United States, the most popular way to watch these movies was through the smoker circuit. These were all-male gatherings, bachelor parties, and fraternal clubs. Furtive traveling roadshow operators would move from town to town carrying suitcases stuffed with film reels. Using portable projectors, they would transform secret basements, fraternity houses, and even rural church halls into pop-up underground theaters. In big cities like Chicago during the 1910s and 20s, small-time gangsters and organized crime syndicates actually stepped in to orchestrate the logistics of these private viewing parties. For the men attending, the environment was less about silent arousal and more about intense homosocial bonding. Surrounded by cigar smoke and alcohol, the audiences would loudly shout, applaud, and throw crude banter at the screen, acting as a collective ritual to project hyper-masculine confidence while viewing taboo material.